Chris Carter from the Locked On Steelers podcast here with your Locked On Now update after your Pittsburgh Steelers have been crushed 30-6 by the Houston Texans in what is the most embarrassing loss of the season. And yes, the other loss was pretty much just as embarrassing, 30-7 score-wise, but it was to a much better team in the San Francisco 49ers. This was an abhorrent performance by the Steelers top to bottom. Maybe only a couple players can say that they came in and at least gave a good effort in this one. Najee Harris, Alex Highsmith among them. But starting at the top with this one, this is on Mike Tomlin. As much as, you know me, I'm a breakdown of too many things that go wrong or go right in the game to point one thing to one guy. But Mike Tomlin said one thing at the start of this week with his press conference, and that was that the Steelers have to game plan for what opponents try to do better. And they did not do that this week. The defense comes out, gives up an opening drive touchdown, gives up a couple field goals, and doesn't look like they are the Steelers defense that should be crushing a backup offensive line across the board for Houston and plays terribly, but at least rebounds and gives the Steelers a chance. Offensively, this was supposed to be the game when Kenny Pickett showed that he could be the guy to come out, show some confidence, didn't have to be elite, didn't have to put up 30 points the way the Houston Texans did, but just had to show that he could make the plays in the tough moments again and be more consistent in the game. And he was far from consistent in this game, 15 of 23 for 114 yards, 0 touchdowns and an interception, and looked lost in all of it. There's so many things to break down that are bad about this game. The offensive line not getting enough push, the defensive line up the middle, giving up too much on the run. Dameon Pierce goes 24 carries for 81 yards, only 3.4 yards per carry, but still, you want to limit that a lot more than you did. CJ Stroud goes 16 of 30 for 306 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. They also give up a passing touchdown to Devin Singletary. It was rough for the Steelers throughout this game. And again, it starts with preparation. And, I think that there's a lot of things that people conflate because there's times to say, oh, Mike Tomlin does this or Mike Tomlin does that. There's things that Mike Tomlin gets accused of that aren't his fault. But this game, this falls on him, to Matt Canada, everybody that coaches this team in this game. They needed to have a better game plan. The Texans came out with a good game plan. They were neutralizing the Steelers' edge rushers. They were trying to counteract the Steelers' aggression that they wanted to show to get after C.J. Stroud. And the Steelers' defense even kind of counterbalanced that eventually. But the Steelers' offense needed a game plan that was going to be able to attack. And there were even plays out there for them to be made, but it's clear that Kenny Pickett didn't understand them or didn't see them. You had a play in the end zone where you run, a simple concept where one guy runs a shorter route, one guy runs a corner route, and you're trying to see which corners bite on, which route the corners bite on. They bite on the short one. Connor Hayward's wide open in the back of the end zone. Kenny Pickett doesn't even see him, throws it in double coverage, and they end up settling for a field goal there in a very basic, simple play that any quarterback needs to make, and he doesn't make it. And then Kenny Pickett gets hurt on a play where he has a clean pocket, has a path that he could run for to get a first down, or could have thrown to a wide-open Connor Hayward. Instead, he runs outside of the pocket, breaking the contain that was set up by his offensive line, and then gets sacked by the guy who Broderick Jones had walled off from getting to Kenny Pickett if he doesn't run around Broderick Jones. One thing's for sure, Kenny Pickett is not developing right now, and that is the scariest part of the Steelers. And this is where I have my biggest criticism that I'll get more into during the whole episode that I do for the Monday part of this show. But my biggest criticism of Matt Canada, Mike Tomlin from the Steelers coaches isn't necessarily play calls, because people blame play calls and then we look at the all-22 and like, oh, no. This guy was open here. This guy was open there, which I'm telling you, just from the couple of replay angles that they showed, looked like that was the case again today. But when you have a young quarterback and you're trying to get him to understand your system, as equally important as drawing up the plays to get them open looks, to get them opportunities, is getting them to understand where those open looks are going to come, when they're going to happen, and to take those shots. And, for older quarterbacks, you expect them to get it done. Whether it's, Ben Roethlisberger for the Steelers, Kirk Cousins for the Vikings, there's guys, you pay them the kind of money to make those kind of reads, and you don't need to hold their hand. Young quarterbacks like Kenny Pickett, yeah, you do. It's why Kyle Shanahan gets a lot of praise with Brock Purdy. It's what I think the Houston Texans did with C.J. Stroud in this game. Made sure that, hey, you understood where to go, when to go. And I think that's the big problem the Steelers are having right now. They don't know where to go with the football when the play calls are made. So the play calls are out there. They're there to be executed, but they're not being executed by a young quarterback who needs the direction to understand this is how you counter what the defense is trying to do. And this is what the defense is going to try to do to counter what you want to do. It's those things that I think the Steelers are sorely lacking in this loss. And it's crazy start. It's a crazy start to the season. The first quarter is now over because you're 4 games in. You have 2 games where you've been mollywopped, gave up 30 points, and scored 7 points or less. And then you had 2 other games that you were dogfighting through and you found a way to win and show that you have the potential to beat other teams in the NFL the way that you want to play. But you have to find some consistency to be a good football team. The Steelers right now haven't found any consistency in a way that shows that they are a good football team. And that is the bottom line for them. And that is on Mike Tomlin and the Steelers coaching staff, as well as the players who didn't execute. Najee Harris was seen talking to Broderick Jones after the game, saying that they have to get the offense together and the team together to address things. We'll see what that addressing point is when we get to hear from them maybe later this week. But the bottom line is something needs to be addressed. Mike Tomlin said there will be changes. I'll talk more about what some of those changes need to be in the full episode that comes out later on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Again, I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. Read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette and find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast and your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. We have a lot more to break down with our full episode. We'll see you then.